All right, so now we're getting into some passive range liftoffs with ankle flexion. Here, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and try to get as much range of motion passively, stretch into the ankle, and then rock back while dorsiflexing at the foot. So you're going to rock forward, flex, and then rock back, trying to maintain that level of tightness in between your ankle and your shin. All right, so now we're going to get into some progressive and regressive angular isometrics with the big toe. You're going to press down on the big toe as much as you can for about 10 seconds. Then you're going to drive the toe to your shin for another 10 seconds, increasing the ability to flex as much as possible. All right, so this is the toe vise. So what you're going to do is you're going to interlock your fingers in through your toes and then just rotate your ankle and your foot around back and forth to gain that new range of motion and to open up those toes. All right, so now we're going to get into pails and rails in a 90-90 position for the hips. This is going to be the externally rotated leg, so we're going to push down into the floor as hard as we can for 10 seconds, and then you're going to actively drive your ankle and your knee up as much as you can without losing position, activating the hamstrings, activating the inner thighs, and trying to utilize those muscles to drive the knee and the ankle up. Now we're going to go to the back leg or the internally rotated leg. You're going to push that knee and ankle down to the floor for a good 10 seconds, driving through as much as you can. Then we're going to go ahead and drive the leg up as far as we can, utilizing that glute and hip to drive the knee up as much as we can without compensation. Okay, so now we're going 90-90 to a bear sit or ISO MPs. Basically what we're trying to do is as we rotate through this movement, we're going to irradiate our body so we're not moving anywhere else but the hips. And you're trying to actively drive the knees away from each other. So as the knee comes down, you're trying to make sure you're keeping space between the other leg. And then as soon as you can not do it anymore, you're going to close that gap as slow as possible, making sure you're getting good range of motion throughout the entire hips as you go through this movement. All right, so here we're going to do a standing hip flexion iso hold. Make sure you're irradiating, driving that knee up, using those hip flexors, using your psoas and your quads to make sure that you're maintaining position and not compensating. Here we go. We're going to do a quadruped lateral leg extension hover. So it's similar to the fire hydrant with the leg extended. You're going to go up and around the block, making sure you're keeping your spine in neutral and you're not caving in your back. Okay, here we're going to be doing a half kneeling quadruped and hip flexor end range hold. Just going to get into a half kneeling position, drive that knee up as high as you can without breaking at the spine, keeping good centration and good irradiation throughout the entire body. Here we're going to do a prone hip cars. So we're still doing those controlled articular rotations, but we're keeping our hips down and making sure you're getting good range of motion. You're isolating that one side of the hip while keeping the hips squared up as much as possible. Here we're just going to be doing a band assisted straight leg raise. Just going to grab a jump stretch band, put it behind you, wrap it around your foot, drive down actively with your hamstring and your glute, and then you're going to let that band just bring it back up and stretch the hamstring while keeping a neutral spine. Here's going to be a supine band distraction hamstring stretch. You're going to tie a band around the hip, grab another band, and just go ahead and move around and open up that hip capsule as much as you can. Kind of play around in that position. Not too strict, you just want to make sure that you're maintaining a neutral spine position, keeping that lower back on the ground, but also getting good distraction of the hip capsule and the hamstring while you're stretching it as well. Okay, so here's a single leg squat with distraction of the hip. What you're gonna do is you're gonna tie that band around your hip, get a rear foot elevated squat. You're gonna squat down. As you come up, you're gonna get an RDL, straightening out the leg, getting a good stretch on the hamstring, but also getting that distraction of the hip capsule. It's a good stretch for your hamstring, but it also loosens up the hips primarily, and it puts you in a good range of motion to work out the leg. All right, so for here, we're going to be doing a shoulder external rotation, PAILS and rails contraction with the band. You're going to actively push into the band as hard as you can for a good 10 seconds. And then we're going to release in a rails contraction, opening up into external rotation as much as you can while maintaining a neutral spine position and not breaking at the TL junction. Okay, so here's a prone Y position, end range hover, similar to the swimmers, but for this we got a active block, so you have to get around those blocks or over those blocks without breaking at the spine. We're only moving at the shoulder. We are not moving at the low back, keeping everything as straight as possible. All right, so here's serratus anterior activation. What you're gonna do is actively drive your elbows into the wall, protraction of the shoulders, making sure you're increasing that interior activation of the serratus, and we're making sure that we're maintaining tightness on that wall and stretching out the lats as you come up. Make sure you keep a neutral spine and head posture as well. Okay, here's band dislocates. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna grab a jump stretch band, making sure you're keeping good tightness in the upper traps. You're not just swinging the band back and forth. We're keeping everything nice and controlled. As you go to bring the band back, you're going to actually bring your shoulder blades together, increasing that tension on the shoulder blades and the upper traps, and rotating back around, all the while trying to maintain that neutral spine and not breaking.